Yeah, man. Give us the conversation you tell your friends that are Web2 normies what you do for a living. Like, how do you tell them you work for this massive IP that's built in Web3 with these payment rails, crypto? Oh my God, it's a scam, you know? Like, oh my God, are you sure Bitcoin's gonna do this? How do you tell them what we're doing?
Honestly, man, like I think that especially with my friends, like I grew up like with a group of kids who played like a lot of Counter-Strike. They played a lot of just like different video games like TF2 that already had like kind of like in-game skin economies. So for most of my friends, the jump from Web 2 to Web 3 isn't super difficult. I will say I was definitely in a unique position last year when we partnered with McDonald's because we distributed 110 million cups across the US and every single McDonald's in the US. And so that was a very easy moment where all of my friends were able to eventually get a cup in their hands and be like, oh yeah, that's us. Like that's the thing that we do. And so it was a really cool feeling, man, for sure. But it's always a little bit interesting to describe. I think Nobody Sausage is another good example where like these brands born from the internet, you're always kind of like aware of them, or at least like so me and my friends are. You'll scroll on the timeline and see them and kind of like wonder where the origin of them is. And I think that we're doing a good job of like setting roots, showing up people that like a brand born through the internet can not only succeed but can thrive, and that's through like leveraging the power of that community based on the internet, you know, frequently having these engaging touch points. Obviously like the on-chain element and having true digital ownership of your assets is what kind of like ties it all together. But yeah, man, been extremely fortunate in that route, because when you can point to McDonald's and be like, oh yeah, that's us, it gives you kind of a pretty easy scapegoat to get through. You know what I mean?
Totally. And I have to ask, because you've eloquently put this perfectly in the way that, hey, what is it that you guys are doing and how you're working? But go further to me, or help me understand. Web3 has had a really tough time getting into these massive Web2 companies, McDonald's and Universal and everything. What's the difference with Doodles that you're able to say with partners that like, hey, we are an established IP, we are an established brand. How are you guys able to break through where others are stuck, right? Like, what's that, like, what is that fatherly advice that you give like other projects of like, man, how do you get through this massive like hurdle that everybody faces in Web3?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you know, there's a lot of different aspects of it, but I think like one of the biggest things that it really boils down to is just the art. Like this is an art style that Scott Burntos, our CEO and founder, he's been kind of perfecting and working on for, I believe, the past 15, 20 years. So before he was even in Web3, before any of us were even any of us were even here kind of messing around on chain. It's like an IP and art style that he's been developing basically his whole life. And I think that when you have an IP such as Doodles, and you know, one comparison that Scott's given before is that art is the candy coat that makes tech less terrifying. You know, having a palatable and approachable IP color palette, Doodles is really a lens, right? So when you think of Lego and you see a Lego Star Wars movie or a Pharrell movie or Lego The Hobbit come out, all of it really makes sense because it's a lens on that world and how you're telling that story. And we think about that very similar to how we like look at Doodles, to where you are able to come into our universe. We are able to tell stories with your characters, with your IP. And not only that, just due to the previous brands that we've partnered with, we've shown people that if you want to enter Web3, if you want to enter the space, this is like a safe way to do so. Like, we can kind of shepherd your journey throughout this, do it in a very organic way where it doesn't feel extractive and it doesn't feel like you're launching something and the rest of the space looks at you launch it and be like, oh, you guys definitely didn't consult Web3 people, did you? And so, and throw up all of those question marks. I think we've built up this really amazing resume of these Web2 brands and these massive Web2 brands at that, being able to approach us and say, hey, we want to be seen through your lens. And not only that, we want you to help us kind of enter this Web3 space, show us how to navigate it, because you guys clearly know what you're doing. That's probably the biggest thing, man, is that breakthrough of that initial brand can open a lot of doors. And I think that was very clearly McDonald's for us. But on top of that, when you have a really special IP, just continue to work it and continue to know like what you have in your hands. And regardless of if that's IP, if that's tech, if it's something that you're working on, a game, whatever it may be, like, believe and bet on yourself. Like, know when you have something special in your hands and recognize that, and just work until you get the doors open. I think that's the biggest thing.